how many people in our immediate friend group have had to go back to get higher level education above a bachelor's?
A lot.
I feel like everybody.
A lot.
Like everybody's still in school right now.
Yeah. And again, it traces back to the issue. Like, okay, you go to 4 years, you go through all this schooling, you then go and you go do 4 years in glorified high school for your bachelor's degree. And then you're going to go and get it opens the door to maybe your first job, an entry-level job where you have to eat the crappy pay. Dude, you can go flip McDonald's in California right now for $20 a fucking hour, dude. And you don't need a damn college degree to go and do that. Some people are making, it's the argument I made. I know it. I have family and friends who are working in the restaurant industry with a bachelor's degree, making more money than some of these entry-level jobs that require a bachelor's degree. It just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me. Welcome back to the Pursuit of Property podcast. Today, we are taking a deep dive into college. We've got two separate sides of the coin here. We got my boy Scotty, college dropout, soon to be multi-millionaire.
So stupid.
And on the other side of the coin, we've got my dumbass, which we'll see in this discussion if it proves to be, but who did go to college, graduated, and went back again 2 years later, and I'm in the midst of it right now. So I think this will be an interesting discussion, dude. Both of us bring in two different perspectives, two separate opinions. We've talked about this a lot, and I think especially for the younger people looking to jump into real estate, college is this thing, dude, that kind of either people don't want to touch with a 10-foot pole or they just kind of find themselves into it.
Yeah. Well, let's start here. Just to give context to this conversation, let's just share the background. You can go first on your education background, what you've done, and I'll do the same. So that way everybody listening has a little bit of grain of salt here on why our perspectives are what they are.
100%. So coming out of high school, there was really no other option for me other than going to school and going to college. That was just based on, family life, where I was at. That just seemed like the next logical step.
Your parents work in education.
Exactly. So, graduated high school, went to Fresno State, graduated with my bachelor's from Fresno State with a degree in finance and a minor in economics. Took a 2-year hiatus. Again, we've talked about this period on multiple podcasts where we were both individually and together just trying to figure out what we wanted to do, where we wanted to go. We were kind of having a tough time in the industry. And so maybe not like a smart one, or a dumb one, we'll see. I'm like, well, hey, I've got time to go back to Fresno State and the master's program is only 2 years, not 4. So why don't I go back? So I went back and I started, and I'll be done in May over there.
And what are your degrees?
So bachelor's degree in finance, minor in economics, master's will be in business administration. So an MBA. Okay.
So your context is that of the person who's gone through higher education and is going even above and beyond. And what is it called? Undergrad? Is that the right term?
Yes.
An undergrad.
Yeah.
So my backstory is a little different. Both parents went to school. Both went to Berkeley, a pretty prestigious school. I think their experience at Berkeley had an effect on us as kids because we were never pushed down the route that you have to go to college. Parents always saved to have a fund for college, but there was never any expectation to go. Older two siblings went to college. I saw them go that route. Then my immediate older brother, 1 year older than me, did not go at all. And so I went and I was trying to go to Annapolis, which is the Naval Academy. I didn't get in there. And as a backup option, I went to Fresno State, right? So starting off on the wrong foot, I may have a very different opinion had I gone to Annapolis. Then I went to Fresno State for civil engineering, a backup degree. I wasn't sure what I was going to study because really I wanted to be a mechanical engineer in the Navy. Dropped out of civil engineering with good grades because I didn't like it. Went to Fresno City for 4 or 5 semesters, including summer and winter semesters. And after, I think maybe, well, I know when I graduated. So I graduated high school 2016. I left college November of 2017. So a little over a year. So forget what I said about semesters. It was continuous, through the summers, but that was it. When I left Fresno City, I was studying computer science and graphic design. And at the same time, I was taking a lot of hard math and hard science courses. So a lot of physics, a lot of calculus, stuff like that. When I dropped, that was me making the decision to take a break, but I never went back because I got into real estate and that's worked out well. So I have just a high school diploma, no associates. I'm like 2 classes away from a math associate, no bachelor's. So that's the context for this conversation.
Looking back, because there was no pressure to go, obviously it started with the desire to go and play collegiate sports, right? If that was out of the picture, do you think you still would have looked to go?
Well, I was trying to go in the Navy as an officer. And since my siblings went to West Point, it seemed reasonable to go to Annapolis. And it seemed like I wouldn't have gone to just any college, I think, just to go. There was value to me that it came with like a job. It came with the VA benefits. It came with prestige. I mean, to be honest, that had to have played a part. And then obviously Annapolis was looking at me for water polo as well, which I was at my peak of water polo.
Okay. And that puts us to also where you said you're 2 classes away. Could you ever imagine going back and doing those 2 classes for an associate's?
Yeah, Kayla's pushing me to do it because it would speed up my chances of getting a bachelor's. I have no interest in going back to get a bachelor's, but I've talked to you about going back to get a bachelor's to go get a JD, get a law degree, but I don't think I'll ever do it. Because when I think about it, for me, the purpose of going back to school would be to get an education in a way of thinking or in a way like getting the credentials to practice a different type of job. And since I've really honed in on negotiations and communication, I felt like litigation or law would be something I'd be good at. But talking to a lot of attorneys, man, they don't really encourage me to do it. I mean, even I had a conversation on Sunday and he said, just keep doing what you're doing. That's probably enough. So, for me, I don't see an intrinsic value for the routes I want to go down. And I don't put down college for people going into the routes where you need it, right? Like if you want to be a doctor or a nurse
or a lawyer
or an engineer or a teacher, like you kind of have to get the credential to do it. But like, why are we going to school for poli-sci if you don't need a degree to be in politics? I don't know. That's my perspective. I've seen a lot of friends get stuck, and what they end up doing is what I was doing, switching majors. Mm-hmm. And I have multiple friends that are still in college, dude, and you're getting your master's and you're younger than me. So I'm just confused because I feel like the current way the system's set up is it's not really set to get you a job. And a lot of the people I know with degrees don't have jobs.
And I think that's the intrinsic issue that I see with, and I'll talk about a bachelor's degree specifically, having gone through that, because I think, and people who are either in school or have graduated with a bachelor's can probably attest to this. It's hard because your bachelor's is essentially 3 years of glorified high school where you have a major and you graduate with a degree in whatever area you're in. But 75% of all the classes you're taking, all the material that you have to learn is all just extended stuff from high school. You're taking basic biology, you're taking basic economics, you're taking basic X, Y, like the list goes on. And I feel like that's especially the bottleneck for if you are wanting to go and go further than that. So I think there's an intrinsic problem with a bachelor's degree in general and an undergraduate degree.
I will say this, I've thoroughly enjoyed a lot of my major specific courses, right? Like it's not a lack of liking to learn. it's all the red tape you have to get through to even get to your major courses, right?
Exactly.
Like even when my little brother was in school for CS, he didn't really start taking serious CS classes until like his junior year.
Yeah.
And he ended up having to do it over 5 years because the way that all the scheduling works out, he had to take all these extra prereqs that drag things out. And then he didn't want to take all his major specific courses in the same few semesters because it was such a heavy workload. So I agree with you. I think it's like glorified high school, and it feels like we've lost touch with what the purpose was, which is college should be just getting you ready for the real world.
Yeah, and you made a good point too. I have family and friends who have that bachelor's degree, and maybe it's not in something, not to beat down on poli-sci, but we made that example of poli-sci, but even business degrees, right? Which, is general enough to where you think you could be able to go and get something pretty easy. I have family and friends with undergraduate, the same business degree that I have, undergraduate, bachelor's degree, and they're not, they can go make more in a restaurant with tips than they can trying to find an entry-level position with any of these companies where a bachelor's degree is required, but you're getting paid dirt.
Yep. And I would be interested to see, we should do this right after this podcast. Let's put out a poll and let's put it as, do you have a degree? We'll do a poll, graduated college or not. And then we'll do a different poll. Are you working in your field of your major or not? And I'd be curious because my personal experience is, unless you're in medicine, which we had Jacob Espinoza come on, he has a nursing degree, not in nursing. But unless you're like in medicine or one of these like very concrete sciences, most people don't even go into the workforce in what they got a degree in, right? They've got a psychology major, but they're in sales. And it's like, you didn't need a psychology degree to go into sales.
Yeah. I think there's an intrinsic issue with a bachelor's degree and with a lot of colleges as well. And I think, one, it's how it's structured. Like we've both shared examples, it takes 2 or 3 years before you can even start to take your major courses. And again, that's such a short period of time compared to your whole bachelor's degree. And then I think also an issue, and people deal with this a lot in colleges across the country on both sides of the spectrum. So I'm staying apolitical here, but colleges are extremely, extremely political, and it makes going through those courses that much more difficult if you're caught with X professor who's tenured and can't be fired, but you're stuck getting a crappy education and a crappy course from this professor, and you're paying for that education, but you're stuck with somebody who can't get fired, can basically do whatever they want, teach the class however they want. And it just causes so much frustration for people, and which I think causes probably a lot of people either to switch majors or drop out entirely. Because I think the undergraduate bachelor's degree system as a whole for colleges is very, very broken.
Yeah. And I'll say this. I may be a little political here, but my personal experience, even at City, which was my favorite experience, at City, I was in a stupid English course that should have been approved for my AP Lit class in high school that I had to take over summer. And in it, we were literally told white people can't talk, which felt inherently just like rude and racist. And I remember this scenario playing out, and I just remember being like, man, I am not welcome here. And I quit the next semester. And dude, when I think of college, I think of that professor, which you're right, she was tenured. And guess what? She got hired to go work at the university, one of the universities in Portland, as their dean of English or whatever. And I'm like, that's such a flawed system that person gets promoted and elevated. And it's like, I had other professors that were awesome. Like I had a photography professor who had been there forever, and he was an asshole, but he taught me more about what I actually needed to know. And so it's just interesting. I feel like I just remember it being wildly political for no reason.
Very much so. And I think I'll give a little bit of credit where credit's due for the undergrad system. I think if you are going to college, the intention, you have to have the intention behind it. And this is the same as anywhere. You could go and pay for a mastermind. You could go and pay for a coach. You could go and pay for a course with other people in it. The networking attributes to college, I will give credit where credit's due, because I think it all leads to what I hold as a belief. It's not what you know, it's who you know. And I've seen that time and time and time again, that it's not what you know, it's who you know. And you don't need to go to school to make those relationships and network with the right people to get into the right doors. The degree is just a line on your fucking resume. It's not a way, it's not a key to go and unlock the door.
All right. Well, we've beat up on college enough. Everybody can kind of get my gist on it. I think that there are arguments for going. I think the biggest thing that I think would make college much better is if it wasn't an immediate follow after high school.
100%.
Way too many 18-year-olds are going into college for degrees that they have no clue about, just because they had the pressure to make a decision quickly. And my opinion is, the people that go back to school after spending some time in the workforce and finding an industry that they like, I think actually it can be very beneficial, because they are getting an advancement in the industry that they actually want to be in. And you'll see those people that go back to college, they tend to actually use that degree. So I feel like we can't blame it all just on the system, but it may fall on the peer pressure to go to college right out of high school, where unless you've been working in a family business and you know what industry you're going into, how would you possibly know you want to be an engineer unless you've gone and temped with an engineering firm and seen what they actually do? Because what you see on TV of what an architect does is different than what an architect actually does. Same with a lawyer, right? Same with a doctor. And I think getting the experience and seeing which career path actually fits what you want to do before making that decision, I think that would make college a lot more worthwhile.
And you can argue that's even a systemic issue back to the high school level, back to like what we're conditioned in elementary, middle, and especially the high school level, right? Because you're getting pressure from your counselors for your GPA to apply to these colleges, declare this, take the SATs. Like, I feel like you can trace that systemic issue all the way back to just the education system in general, right?
Just look at where money flows, dude. You went to public school. I went to private school. Both schools cared a lot about their college continuation rate. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, that's not really the best option for every kid.
Yeah. Now, I'll transition the conversation into a master's degree, because I feel like this experience has been starkly different than undergrad. Now, throughout the time going to school, I was also working in the real estate. I was working in real estate in the industry that I grew to know that I really liked, and grew to know I wanted to be in this industry, right? Real estate, entrepreneurship, business as a whole, right? And so throughout all that time, I'm gaining the work experience. I graduate. And then again, there's this period of time, I'll use an example, where we were figuring out kind of what to do. And right before I went and started school, my master's program, I literally applied to a job at Zillow. And the reason I got that door was opened was not because I had the line on my resume that said I graduated college. I got into that door and made it all the way to the final interview process. The person who opened that front door was just a friend of a friend, network. Like, it was literally the expansion of the network that I had built over the past few years in the industry I was in, right? And the work experience and the tangibles that I brought from doing stuff with the team, building up my own business, being able to speak on that 100%, I got the feedback, was why I made it so far in that interview. It's not because I had the degree on the resume. Now, I'm not arguing. Now, could that have helped and been a very small determinant in why? Sure. But that was not the driving force as to why I made it that far, right? So make the decision to go to the master's program. And I can argue that the master's program, much more specialized. You're not dealing with any of the bullshit in undergrad. For a master's in business specifically, all of these courses are heavy business concepts. And so I would argue, again, I'm done in May, I'm not done yet, but all of the value that I've gotten from the master's course has probably been tenfold to what it has been in undergrad. And it's very, very helpful to see all the things that we're doing in our positions to bring that work experience into the classroom, take what I'm learning in the classroom and bring it back to our company that we're working in, right? So, but again, I wouldn't have been able to make that jump to the master's program if I didn't have that prerequisite of having the bachelor's degree.
And that's my argument, is that there is a benefit to college in the sense that you're getting. Why does it have to be a next degree? Why couldn't you have done your bachelor's level stuff in years 1 and 2 and your master's stuff in years 3 and 4?
Mm-hmm.
And my argument, there's 2 points to make. Was one, you needed a bachelor's degree to apply to that job.
Yep.
So if you're listening to Scott's opinion, you think, wow, that kind of makes some sense. Just know some job opportunities will never be available to you because they do filter and they require a higher level degree. Is what it is. You're on an uphill battle. It's on you to be able to prove your worth. But 2, I would argue that what you just said is accurate, which was you worked the entire time, which most college students are not doing.
No.
And the difference between the amount of work you could do versus the amount of work I could do without college was pretty stark, right? I mean, the amount of time that I could spend in my day working on real estate was probably double what you could do because you had actual coursework, homework, tests, exams, classroom, right? So there's an argument to be made that, like, because I wasn't going to college, I got an accelerated 4-year degree, but I didn't have anything to show for it. And you got the paperwork to show for it and some lived experience, but it gives you the opportunity to now go to a master's degree, which is something I won't be able to do. Like, I won't be able to go to master's course level classes unless I go get a bachelor's, which will take me 4 years.
Well, and it traces back again to the art. Like, I don't think necessarily it's all situational if it's a right or a wrong answer, but you could also argue what I did pay for and what I'm paying for. Somebody, again, could also go and pay the exact same amount, if not more, to either a trade school or to a coach or to a mastermind, whatever it is, to where you can gain and network with those people in the industry. You can make the argument you're paying for an education. Just what education are you paying for?
Right. And I always said that I was paying for an education because I had a coach, right? I had Benny and Jason that were taking half of the income at the start. I mean, in commissions and deals, they both made a lot of money, right? So it's not like I didn't pay for it.
Yeah.
But it didn't go to a college. It gave me a paperwork. It gave me lived experience that I moved forward with, right?
Yeah.
And I would say, this is where what you want to do is really important. This is why you can't just go get a degree and then go to a different industry because you just wasted your time, in my opinion. Do you see an issue with me being able to retain employment?
No.
At this point?
No.
I mean, I'm in a sales field, which most people aren't going to want to do. That's okay. It's not a fun job all the time. But I'll tell you what, you don't need a degree to go work in almost any sales position, period. And so for me, I've gotten, I would call it a master's level education in sales and negotiation and business and running a team. And I can take that to pretty much any industry in sales. I would have to learn one new thing, which is the product, but that's it. So if you want to go in sales, why go get a degree? Right? Just go get the lived experience. But if you need to go into a job that requires that college degree, make sure that you're actually going to work in it,
Yeah. No, talking on the position level is really important too, because I'm in this lived experience. I would make the argument for me, somebody who is not in love with sales and sales is not my bread and butter, to grow and be the organizational back piece. You talk about a director of operations or a COO, right? Chief Operating Officer. I would argue that it would be more that this master's degree would probably be much more beneficial for me to grow into that position that I'm going to be in versus a sales position where, again, you made the argument and I agree 100% for sales. How is a fucking biology class or a finance? There's almost zero to no. At least when I graduated in undergrad, there's really no sales courses. You're going to get the lived experience by working in sales, not by going and sitting in the classroom.
No, there's a communication course. You have to take that. I know that. I took it. It was like brain rot. No, I would argue this point, though. Your degree gets you your first job. Your first job gets you your next.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, you right now don't need to go get a master's degree. You have a bachelor's degree. You have a good job. You have 5 years experience at this point. If you wanted to go be a COO or a CFO, they don't care as much about the paperwork that you have to show for your education. They care about the way you think, what you actually bring to the table, those things. So I feel like, I mean, getting the master's has been nice because you've brought information back to the team. It increases what you know. But you could have also just stuck it out. I would argue that our business coach brings us master level information on how to run a business.
1,000%.
And it's super fucking applicable.
Absolutely.
And it's not real estate specific.
No.
And so to me, it's like, well, okay, it's not cheap for this coach, but it is an education.
You're picking what education you're paying for.
And I would argue, I mean, I've put out feelers before. Like, I could move out of sales at this point and make a few $100,000 a year, but I don't have a degree to show for it. But what I'm bringing is a lived experience that demonstrates the ability to produce the desired outcome. So I think this is all tying back to, it's not college necessarily that's bad. It's like the route that you go there, why you're going there, when you're going there, and what you're planning on using it for that makes it so often just a bad investment to me.
Yeah, no, 100%. And even like going back to, it's all about your track record. What have you done and what you can bring to the table? You made that point. And a resume can be built out to show the proof is in the pudding, show what you've done and show what you can do. And the interview process can show that. The degree is a line item on the piece of paper. And again, like you said, maybe a lot of these jobs do either require or they say preferred. And when they say preferred, it essentially means damn near required anyway, that at least gets you through the door. But where you're going to shine is what you bring to the table and what proof you have to show of what you've done.
I will again make the same argument. Your degree just gets you the first job. Your first job gets you the next. If I were to put on my resume right now, I would put 7-figure business for myself, and I put all the information for the P&L and that. I would put management experience with a team of 7, running a real estate flipping company.
Yep.
I would put coaching program information. I would put information about what I've been doing for the last 7 years. And that would get me my next job, right? They're not going to look at the high school diploma and say, this kid's an idiot. They're going to talk to you. And if you're an idiot, it will show, right? So I don't know. My argument is it is very helpful for that first job. But most places, if you're cutting your teeth, if you're not going the college route, have a little humility, go get the base level job and work your way up. I mean, you're going to learn everything you need to know, and you're going to have 4 years to do it while all your peers are going to school. Like, that's the thing that still stands out to me, was how quickly I found financial success and the ability to afford my own lifestyle while all my friends were living off of mom and dad helping them during college, which I'm not blaming you. Like, it is the standard way of going, but it was starkly different to me because I had 4 years to get my financials in a place where, I got married at 22, paid for my house, paid for my wedding, bought a car, got our dogs, bought another car. Like, I was doing adult shit while all my friends were graduating because I had 4 years to just make money and learn while they were getting degrees, and then they're starting over at their first job. So I don't know. I feel like I'm 4 years ahead of everybody.
And it's a game of choices, dude. And also what we've grown to see too is a bachelor's degree is essentially now like the new normal for these jobs, right? Like, getting a bachelor's degree nowadays doesn't even really get you much. You do have to go and continue the education for a master's degree or any of this stuff.
How many people in our immediate friend group have had to go back to get higher level education above a bachelor's?
A lot.
I feel like everybody.
A lot.
Like everybody's still in school right now.
Yeah. And again, it traces back to the issue. Like, okay, you go to 4 years, you go through all this schooling, you then go and you go do 4 years in glorified high school for your bachelor's degree. And then you're going to go and get it opens the door to maybe your first job, an entry-level job where you have to eat the crappy pay. Dude, you can go flip McDonald's in California right now for $20 a fucking hour, dude. And you don't need a damn college degree to go and do that. Some people are making, it's the argument I made. I know it. I have family and friends who are working in the restaurant industry with a bachelor's degree, making more money than some of these entry-level jobs that require a bachelor's degree. It just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me.
That's it, dude. I feel like there was a saying about the high school drop, or the A and B students in high school will be the employees of the C students.
I feel
like I've heard that or something like that before. But it's funny because a lot of my siblings have degrees, and there was always a joke that they'd come work for me. And then my brother-in-law, Colin, came on the podcast. He worked for us for a bit, right?
Yeah.
There was no ego involved, but it's just funny because while he was deployed and doing these other things, I was building a business, and it worked out. And not everybody who drops out of high school is fucking smart, right? Like, let's be honest. A lot of people drop out of college and high school because they have no plan. But if you drop and you leave high school and you go pursue things that you like, and then you work hard and diligently achieve it as if somebody were going and forcing you to get a degree, right? You put some dedication, you work long hours, you actually make sacrifices. It pays off. You have the school of hard knocks.
Yeah.
That's my opinion on it.
Yeah. I mean, dude, there's been pros and cons. I've both shared both on different levels. I always trace it back to it's who you know. The way the door got opened into real estate for me was because I was going to college. I was at a speaking event for Fresno State, and I met one of our mentors, Benny, his mom, at that event, right? And of course, if I was not going to college, that door would not have been opened that way for me into real estate.
You would have found him from serving him coffee every day.
Like, dude, there's no one right way to go about it. But even then, that's a testament to, yes, I was going to college. This was at a Fresno State event, but it was because I had intention of even going to go and speak there and network and be with all of these high worth people, it's the networking piece, dude. It's the networking piece. I think this game of college is a game of choices. And I 100% agree with you. I think far too many people make that immediate jump and transition from high school to college. And for some people, that's great because if
you want to be a doctor, you have to go to school.
We also knew a lot of dumbasses where that structure is probably really good for you, right?
That's true.
Right? Hey, you may as well come out if you're going to go off the rails for 4 years, you may as well do it and come out with a degree rather than not. And that structure can be very, very helpful for you, right? But I think we're also wired a little differently to where we know that college is not the end all be all. It's about who you know, what your track record is, what you can provide. And I mean, we've done so many podcasts on networking. I feel like networking is the biggest piece, and that can happen at college. That can happen without college. That can happen in any industry. It's all about putting intention behind it.
I have 2 points. One pro college and one anti not college. No. One anti-college, one anti-no college. First point, if you're going to go to school, work while you do it. Don't take out loans. If your parents are wealthy enough to pay for it, just take that as a blessing. Don't go pull out student loan debt. I mean, Kayla went through school, got her accounting degree. It took her 5 years instead of 4, but graduated debt-free, worked the whole time, got immediately into a job that paid well. The thing with that is, since we're in the housing sector, student loans kill your ability to buy a house, and they completely delay moving forward. If your goal was to get a bachelor's degree to move forward in life and get an advance, it's not going to happen that way if you're taking out big student loan debt. How many 40-year-olds are still applying for houses that are paying for student loans that make it so they can't buy the home they want? So just, if you're going to go down college and you don't have the money for it, figure out a way to pay as you go. take community college for 2 years, then transfer to a 4-year school and get your bachelor's. Pay as you go while you're working. Take your time. That will be much more efficient than trying to just cram through it, get $100,000 in debt, and then be stuck with a 12% loan, right?
Absolutely.
So that's a big argument that if you are going to college, just be very conscientious, because a lot of people sign those docs without reading them, and then they screw up their life, right? That's what you did. You worked the whole time, right? So Kayla's not the only example. Cade is a perfect example of working while he was going to school to pay for schooling, right? And if, like I said, if your parents can help you, just count it as a blessing.
Absolutely.
Just take their generosity and make sure that you get good grades. Anti-college. I will argue I missed out on a huge part of being a young adult because I was not going out partying. I was not in a fraternity. I was not going into clubs. So my network is quite a bit older than me. So I have lots of friends who have these big groups of college friends. When you look at my wedding, it's you and my immediate family, right? It was not a whole bunch of fraternity brothers, a whole bunch of college buddies. I have some college buddies and we're good friends, but I definitely missed out on like the time where you can kind of just screw up. And a lot of people just take that as whatever, right? So if you don't go to college, you do have to sober up and become an adult, the same way that all those college grads that get out of their school and take their first big boy job, they have to change their lifestyle. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of a con. I sometimes look back and kind of wish that I had just screwed around for a couple years. I've always been pretty straight-laced, but I'll argue we're buying a $5 million warehouse building at 26. That's not because you were screwing around, right? So it's pros and cons, you know. Life isn't all about money. It's not all about status. It's not all about financial security. There's also a part about just enjoying it and doing fun shit and having cool stories to tell. So just be kind of aware of that too.
Yeah. Yeah. All comes down to the pros cons list, man. Again, I think there's obviously intrinsic issues with how the system is set up. The barriers it takes to even, I mean, you made a phenomenal argument. How it should be set up is the first 2 years, you want to go and do this? You already did all your bullshit in high school. Go and learn this from the right people. And again, the intrinsic issue with these professors and tenure and all this stuff from the right people, and then spend the next 2 years with, you know, quote unquote, the master stuff, the higher level stuff. Because again, dude, I'll make the argument, even the professors for my master's program versus undergraduate, you've got a majority of bozos in there teaching. 90% of all of my master's instructors are business owners, are retired business owners, are people who have the track record of going and working and building businesses to where, oh shit, this feels good. I'm actually learning from people who have gone and done it and have the track record to show it. And it makes the learning experience that much better versus when you have these issues in undergrad.
There should be a requirement for that. I just feel like if you're just teaching, it's the Oppenheimer thing. Theory can only take you so far, right? Like, you know, if I were to go back at this point, I would like to learn from the people like I've been learning. I'm not calling people that are ex-real estate professionals. I'm talking to the guys that are at the peak of their game and saying, how can I learn? What can I do different? And I'm getting feedback from them live in the moment. These industries change so fast. I mean, the people that, you know, were in the industry in 2000, 2024 is a totally different world, right? I would like to see the people that are teaching me the highest level of the game are living, breathing, and in it, right? So it's a good argument to make.
And a perfect example, we had Gary Carter, the president of the Fresno Association of Realtors. He is a professor at Fresno City teaching real estate, a guy who is actively in the industry, actively doing amazing stuff for the community, for our association. Like I 100% agree with you. We need more professors like that. And again, it trickles down to, it's also hard, right? Because Gary's not doing that for the money. We know that.
Right. I mean, it doesn't pay him.
No. But it's an opportunity to give back and start to change that system little by little. And I think that's more the change we need to see for the college route that I think could make it a much more beneficial and appealing route for more people than it is. Because we've seen all these issues pop up. We've seen the mass movement away from college. It's because they've been building and stacking all of these issues that are now coming to bite them back in the ass.
Yeah. And, flowers where flowers are due. I mean, your parents are in higher level education. Some of my family's in higher level education. I wouldn't argue that we would push back on any of them. It's not the whole system is corrupted. There's bad apples in every system.
Every system.
But the current education system feels like there's more bad apples than good. And it can be hard even hearing them complain about it because they are working in that industry and they are the minority and they're pissed off about it.
Exactly.
And they're at the peak of their game, right? And they want to be around other high producers. So, to the professors that are out there doing a good job, we commend you because that's the only reason that those institutions are even around is for that one professor that leaves you with a good, impactful motion. But, I think it just needs to be overhauled in the way that we look at it. College should be something that should be teaching you industry-specific stuff. We need to get rid of a lot of this general ed. If high school didn't cover it, put it in high school, when you're forcing us to be in a school anyways. And from there, if you're going down that college route, you need to be conscientious about the industry you're going into and really knowing what you want to do. And if you're not knowing, then take a break. There's no rush to get your college degree by 22. If you go and work for a couple of years and you bounce around a few industries until you find something you like, then go to school and work while you go to school in the industry.
And the last argument I'll make for college, and if you're sitting in that seat, whatever stage it is, community, bachelor's, master's, whatever it is, don't be going in there with the mindset just to check a box. Again, the only reason that door opened into real estate is because I put intention into all of the stuff I was doing with school and in school. So if you're going into the classroom just to sit, twiddle your thumbs for however long, just to check a box,
scroll Twitter,
that's the wrong way to go about it. Network with the right professors, right? A lot of people feel like you can't even network with your professors. Network with the other people. You can get a feel for people. Network with your classmates. Network with your network, right?
Join clubs.
You have to, because these are the people that are going to be in your industry. These are the people who are going to know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who's going to open that first door for you, right? Put intention into what you're paying for.
When you met Benny, were you at a club event?
No, it was when I met his mom.
Yeah.
No, it was I had volunteered to speak at the university president's house with all of their donors, and I volunteered to go present on what we were doing with some school stuff. Exactly. So I was like, yep, we need someone to go talk.
Stuff.
Exactly.
And Kayla had the same thing. She found the company that hired her. They had her come intern for 2 years while in school. She met him from an accounting club. And when she graduated, she was offered a very, very comfortable job because she had gone above and beyond board, was in the club, did the internships, did well in the internships. It wasn't just the degree that got her in. It was like we got to know you. Exactly. And now you got the offer.
There's a time and place for all the fun, right? If that's your thing. But regardless, whatever that balance is, have intention behind going and putting yourself out there.
I can't believe we waited 4 years to do this podcast.
I know.
This should have been like podcast number one.
Could have been podcast number one. I'm glad we did it, 157 something episodes later. Here we are, dude.
Well, dude, get the masters, get her done. We'll see if I ever go back. And we appreciate you guys tuning in for our episode. Share this with your kids if you think the opinions are relevant. I think these are good conversations to have with your kids as they're going into the college age. But we will see you guys back here next week with the Pursuit of Property podcast.